So I get asked a lot what I did to get out of the rumination and obsessive thinking cycle because this is probably the most frustrating phase of the healing process, getting out of a narcissistic or toxic, manipulative type of relationship. And it is, for me, it was the phase that was absolutely the most challenging and the one that took the longest to get out of because it felt very out of control. Like it felt like I didn't have control over my own thoughts. I didn't have control over even some of my own actions because I felt like my thinking was controlling me and not me controlling my thinking. And here's the thing. I'm a content creator in this niche, and I'm going to be the first person to tell you, eventually, there's just only so much that you really need to learn about narcissism and toxic people. Like, yes, knowing all this information is important because it's hard to fight a battle if you don't know what kind of battle you're fighting. But at some point in time, the focus has to be shifted on learning about narcissism and learning about why they did what they did and trying to make sense of the relationship. And at some point, we have to start shifting the focus into putting that energy back into ourselves. And I tell people this all the time on my coaching calls, that if we have all this time and all this energy to be thinking about this person and why they did what they did and, replaying the relationship over and over again or thinking about what they're doing now and who they're doing it with, if we have all this time and we have all this energy to be putting it into those thoughts, then we have the time and we have the energy to be putting that same amount of effort back into taking care of us and to moving forward with our life. The hard part is making that shift from one to the other. So how did I do this? Like, how did I get free from this? And again, this was not an overnight process. It took me about 6 weeks to fully break this habit. Now, it was not 6 weeks after the breakup. It was several months after the breakup, but it was about 6 weeks of work. The main practice that I did that helped me break the rumination cycle was doing something that I called the Selfcare Wellness Wheel. Now, the Wellness Wheel is not my own concept. The Wellness Wheel, the original one, is a very well-known concept in the psychology world about really just having a balanced life. So it's like your financial life, it's about your spiritual life, your life with your family, just things that are meaningful that give you a balanced life. Well, when my therapist started teaching me about this, I kind of twisted it in a way of self-care. And so I started to create this different categories of self-care and redefined what self-care meant to me to where it was more just about taking care of myself and putting myself back on the priority list and not like what society usually tends to make self-care out to be, which is like the manis and the pedis and the massages and all. And not that there's anything wrong with that stuff, but I think that the small daily things that we do that pour back into us, those are the ones that are probably the most important because you're able to make them habits and routines. I gave myself healthy distractions to preoccupy my mind to where I used these distractions when I needed them, when I felt like I was going down this ruminating path. I did not use these distractions to avoid dealing with the pain and dealing with the emotions that I was still dealing with. I gave myself that space and that permission to still deal with the emotions, but when I felt like I was starting to get to the point where, okay, I'm no longer processing and now I'm dwelling, now's when I needed to use some of these tools and use some of these distractions. The first one that I used, which was actually pretty effective, we have those friends who want to be supportive and they want to be there for us, but they've also never really gone through this exact situation, so they don't quite understand it. And maybe unintentionally, they're trying to encourage you to stop, right? But they'll say these things like, "Come on, hun, it's just a breakup. Like, you were too good for him anyways. Like he wasn't on your level. Like blah blah blah." Like they're trying to be encouraging, but we can receive it in a way where it's being dismissive. And I truly believe that that's not what most people are trying to do. It's just, again, they don't understand this. They've never been through this. Well, use those kind of friends to your advantage. Hold yourself accountable to these friends and set up a deal with them where, hey, if I call you like in the evening and you're available, and will you please answer? And if you do answer, hold me accountable that we talk about anything but my ex, and use their inability to understand a trauma bond to your advantage, and call them up and literally do exactly what you're wanting them to hold you accountable for, which is talk about anything but them. So that's a great one. It also gets you reconnected with friendships and get you reconnected with people that you may not have been able to while you were in the relationship because they were creating this isolation. So again, that's reclaiming something for yourself. One that was very effective for me was I started getting physically active again. I don't know where this came from because growing up, for the most part, I really hated running. But there was one day where I just decided, I was like, I'm going to go for a run. And my next thought was, well, that's freaking weird. And then I just did. And so I started running. I found running to be very therapeutic. Going for walks is great. And you don't have to walk or run. Like if you want to just go to the gym, or if you want to just do yoga, or you want to do, like an at-home workout program or something like that. Just find something that gets your blood pumping. Another healthy distraction that I used was honestly just spending quality time with my family. There had kind of been this like unspoken strain in my family, and I know that a lot of it had to do with my ex because my family saw through him from day one, but I was stubborn enough where it was, in my mind, I wanted to prove them wrong. Like, I excused a lot of his behaviors, and if they brought concerns, I'm just like, y'all just don't understand, like, he's just been through a lot, blah, blah, blah. So really just kind of, not that I lost my relationship with my family at all, but just taking advantage of that opportunity where the strain was no longer there. And another one that I did was I just started doing things that honestly I just enjoyed and that just made me feel good, like that traditional self-care kind of thing. Like I started tanning. I was going to this place that had like some spa equipment and stuff, so I would like sit in the sauna, I would do hot yoga, I would tan, like just anything that just made me feel more confident in myself, that I took advantage of that. And again, what it did was it told myself on a subconscious level that I'm worth taking care of, because for a long time, even though, and I'll be honest, my ex never actually said that I wasn't allowed to do these things. My ex never explicitly, said that I was worthless, but the way that I was treated and the way that I was constantly, I don't even know how to word this. It was that anxiety level. It was that really, this is what it was. It was just the fact that like, I knew something was up. I knew something was wrong. I knew something was off about this whole relationship. And I knew that, well, in my mind, I knew if I was going to make it work, I had to give it my full undivided attention. And I had to make sure that he knew that he was priority. So like literally if I wasn't at work and I didn't have my kids, like it was like he was number one. And I was just kind of made to feel like I couldn't take care of myself. I ended up internalizing this concept of like I couldn't do better than him, and my identity was so wrapped up in this individual that taking care of myself was very much an afterthought, if there at all. Really what it comes down to is you need to find some activities that are meaningful to you, that you feel like fill your cup, that you feel like bring you joy, that you feel like make you feel more complete, but have different ones. Because here's the problem. The reason why I made it into like this wellness wheel is because when we put all of our eggs in one basket, if something happens to that one basket, we tend to have this over-exaggerated emotional response because it's like the one thing that I do to take care of myself, something happened to that. And it just kind of can send us into this tailspin. But if it's like, okay, well, that kind of sucks. I was planning on doing that, but it didn't work out, so I'll just go do these other things. Because you have multiple tools in your tool belt. So if you guys are interested in learning more about this concept and the practice that I did create a workbook called the Wellness Wheel Journal. And I will have the link to that provided in the description in this video, so feel free to check it out. You can find it on Amazon to get a written copy of it, or there is a PDF version online as well. And literally this workbook I made was the exact practice that I did that broke my rumination cycle. And I want to be very clear, just because after the 6 weeks my rumination cycle was broken, I never tell people that I was healed after these 6 weeks. I do believe that my trauma bond was broken after these 6 weeks, because it was after I completed this whole thing, this daily disciplined work for 6 weeks. I actually went no contact like right after that, and I've never looked back. I'm also very honest too. It's not like I didn't have any, I call them relapses. It's not like I didn't have any rumination moments. It's not like I didn't have slip ups during these 6 weeks, but what I was doing was being more intentional about breaking these pathways in my brain and breaking these habits, because that's really what rumination boils down to. It's a habit that we created in the relationship that is now being transferred to out of it, and we just have to break it. And when you treat this almost with the same amount of respect that you would treat breaking an addiction, and take it that serious, I promise you, it's doable. It does take some time and it does take some work, but you do have to focus on it, and you do have to give it the respect that it deserves in order for you to get the results that you want. So I hope this was helpful to you guys. Make sure that you like and comment your thoughts on this video, and subscribe to my channel. These videos that I post on here are exclusive to my YouTube channel. You cannot find them on any of my other platforms. But speaking of that, make sure that you are following me on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Happy healing to you guys, and thank you for letting me be a part of your journey.